Okay, the December 7, 2023 meeting of the Corvallis School Board is called to order at 6:32 p.m. In the interest of public health and safety for all community members, especially immunocompromised individuals and their families, the Corvallis School Board will continue to offer a virtual option for board members and district personnel participation. Additionally, public comment is available at some meetings, both in person and virtually. Information about how to provide public comment is available on the Corvallis School District website. The board agenda and packet, as well as the link to the district YouTube channel, are available on the school board page on the district website. Public meetings are live streamed on the district's YouTube channel, and a recording is posted to the same channel, typically the day after the meeting. Tonight we have Directors Largent, Hawkins, Alabdabra, and Finger McDonald in attendance in person, and myself, and Co-Vice Chair Tomini in attendance virtually, and Co-Vice Chair Jones is excused. So the first order of business is board member reports. Do we have any reports? All right, we don't have any reports this evening, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the Oregon School Board Association and National School Boards Association updates. And I know there was a written report provided, and you wanted to share something as well, Sammy, and also if anybody has questions to Sammy's report as well.
Yeah, thank you, Lou. I want to be available for any questions. I just want to highlight a few events and activities that the National School Board Association is having, the NSBA Equity Symposium, the Advocacy Institute, and the annual convention. And I want to highlight and thank Ryan for his leadership. I'll be co-presenting along with Sarah Finger McDonald and Ryan in New Orleans. We had a presentation accepted in 2024 annual convention. Also, several board members were there in Portland, and want to highlight the commitment of this board for professional development when we went to OSBA annual convention, and also multiple participations from board members and the superintendents, and also the foundation. A highlight I want to pull out of the report is that the presentation for Public Schools Foundation was celebrated by other board members across Oregon, and they're talking about the good work that our Public Schools Foundation is doing. So grateful for that opportunity of sharing that information, and happy to answer any questions.
We haven't met since the meeting, huh? Yeah, we were supposed to, yeah. Do any other board members want to share about the OSBA conference as well?
I thought that the conference was very well organized to start with, and the sessions that I attended were so informative, and it's just really interesting to talk to other school board members across the state. I feel very fortunate to serve on this board here in Corvallis after attending.
So I agree with everything Chris said. It was a really good, informative meeting. I went to several sessions about the recently passed literacy initiatives, and it was interesting to see what work is anticipated with that initiative, and also to really understand how underfunded that initiative is, because the problems we're being asked to address are broader than what that money will be able to cover. So I think there's continued work to be done there, advocating for our schools and for our kids and our teachers. Thanks.
I also went to the conference, and everybody said what I was going to say, except for I did have the chance to watch Dr. Whitebear and Dr. Jones present about some of the work here in the Corvallis School District, and I thought it was an excellent presentation, and I really enjoyed watching Dr. Alabdra give a speech as the incoming president.
I would agree with everybody about just the opportunity to be able to go and represent the Corvallis School District was really awesome. I was thankful to be able to present in 2 sessions, one of them with Ryan and Therese on our partnership with OSBA as far as board development and how we've utilized that kind of support to offer better programming and outreach with the community and policy work with OSBA in that partnership. And so that was awesome to present there, as well as along with Amit and Helen from OSBA Caucus of Color and Oregon Department of Education on how board members can support the 3 upcoming curriculums that have been mandated by the state. So the Tribal History, Shared Histories, the Ethnic Studies, and the Holocaust and Other Genocides curriculum sets, and kind of give examples of what some of those kind of lessons could look like, and helped everybody understand that it's not scary to teach about these things, and had a lot of we had a lot of people in that session, and some board members from other districts that came up and appreciated that as well. So it was awesome to represent Corvallis in that way. Anytime I talk to board members in other districts, I have a lot of appreciation for the work that we do here. I'm always aware that we have work to continue to do, and I also recognize that we do some great things here as well. And so, yeah, that was pretty much it. And as it was said, it was great to hear the keynotes too, and see some performances from students in other districts too. Do you have anything else, Sammy, for the report? Okay, so that is it for those updates. And next on the agenda is the superintendent's report. So I'll hand it over to Ryan.
Thanks. I just have a couple of things I wanted to highlight and provide updates around. The first is that we currently have 3 positions that are open on the budget committee. So it's always an opportunity for folks who may potentially want to be on the school board in the future to try that on in a way that takes less time and is sort of a short window in the spring. So if you are listening as a community member or as a board member, if there's folks in the community that are active and engaged, it may be an opportunity to reach out to them. The application is on the district website. In it, we have 2 positions that are 3-year terms and 1 position that's a 2-year appointment. So a couple of different options for folks. At our next meeting, we'll have additional school improvement plan presentations by our elementary principals. So as we spent last board meeting with our secondary principals, it will be our elementary principals this time coming. So we'll make sure to get the packet out so you have a chance to review those materials, and we will have the same format as before. So a rotation that allows you to spend time with each one of our principals talking about their school and the things they're working on. So again, I know that besides graduation, I know those are typically the 2 favorite meetings for board members. So just know that's upcoming. A couple of other things I wanted to share. One is that working with Marcianne, we recently made an initial application for Title VI, which is a federal program in support of our Native American students. We have, through our enrollment process, identified approximately 75 students who have some sort of tribal affiliation or recognition. And so along with Dr. Whitebear and Marcianne and a couple of other district staff members, there's going to be a couple of opportunities for families to come together and to provide perspective and ideas. And that's the next step that we would take if we were working towards a formal application. Title VI is a federal grant. And so there was first deadline was December 1st for a initial request to submit an application, and we've completed that step of the process. So just wanted you all to know that that's one of the things we're currently working on. Also recently, at CHS, they were, with a partnership with OSU, they started the TRIO Upward Bound program. And TRIO Upward Bound has a number of ways that students are supported. It's for students who are navigating poverty or first-generation college-going students. And it has aspects of academic advising and tutoring, career exploration, campus visits, cultural events, and college and financial aid application support. So that is a program that just is getting started right now. Salvador Munoz is the admin at CHS who's been working on that. So another opportunity to bridge what we have as a community because of OSU and higher education for our students and helping them to create those pathways. So I thought that was an exciting thing to be able to share. In addition, recently we've had 2 meetings that have included Judah to talk about accessibility for these board meetings. There's a list of ideas that we have from talking about the physical space, then seating accommodations, and some of those other pieces around ADA accommodations that we could just make more present and easier for people to know about. We've also talked about accessibility so that folks who want to make public comment, they're again highlighting that you can still make public comment online. Also, we are thinking about the accessibility to the board meeting materials, also thinking about languages, and when people make public comment, how do we make sure we're prepared for, as you know, in our district we have over 70 languages spoken, so thinking about that. And then also just thinking about what are the other ways that we want to communicate with folks so that they know all these things are in place before they come to the meeting, so that there's a so that doesn't become a barrier or a question for people about coming and participating. So we've had 2 meetings with our team and with Judah to talk about that, and we're going to meet again in January to finalize what are those next steps and things we can put into place here at Lincoln. So wanted to mention that. That was something that was shared on October 12th during the board time for discussion, and so just wanted you to know that we're moving forward with that. Also, I wanted to take a moment to thank Olivia. This is Olivia's final business meeting with us as the Director of Finance and Operations before she heads to Lane ESD. And I also wanted to welcome 2 familiar faces to their new roles, and that's Lauren Wolf, who is our Director of Finance, and Kim Patton, Director of Operations. So that is later on the agenda under consent, but I wanted to, again, say thank you to Olivia for the work she's done over the last 9 years, and to welcome these folks to their new positions. So again, thanks for all you've done, Olivia. And then finally, I wanted to let you know that I had the opportunity as a regional superintendent on the Oregon Association of School Executives team with COSA to meet with Governor Kotek last week. In that meeting, it was the first meeting of a series that we'll continue to do, and the focus was around 2 things, really. One was around collective bargaining, which makes sense because that was when PPS was still had just reached a tentative agreement. But also that conversation is about state compensation, the funding formula that we currently use, and are there changes that need to be made for the upcoming biennium. So as members of OSBA and in your work as with OSB on the legislative side, just to have those pieces in mind. She put out a message the day before our meeting about her desire to look at the way that schools and public schools are funded in Oregon. And so again, it's something for the next biennium. So not something that can be addressed in the short session in February, but something that would be addressed in the longer session the following year. So I know you all play key roles around the state, and I just want you to know that that is something that there will be opportunity to have lots of discussion and input towards. And along the way, if there's questions you have or suggestions that would be helpful, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, because I'll be in some of those conversations as well. So I think as of now, those are the things I really wanted to highlight tonight. And lastly, just again, appreciation for all of you coming to OSBA. I know that not all school boards have attendance, and not all school boards have the number of board members that attend as we do, which is something that's been a pattern since I've been here. And at the same time, it's not lost on me that I could be the superintendent there by myself, and that's not the case. You're all taking on leadership and doing important work. So thanks for that and all you do.
Thanks, Ryan. Any questions for Ryan? Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, this isn't so much a question, but just an appreciation for so many of the things you were listing were really about removing barriers to participation by students or by community members. And I appreciate that work. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, no other questions. I did want to appreciate that as well, and also thank Marcianne for the extra work you're doing on some of this as well with the Title VI program, because I know that takes a lot, and investing time attending meetings and everything too, to learn more about that. And another appreciation to Olivia too, for a lot of times that the budget work is kind of, not everybody doesn't understand how much goes into that, so thank you for that, and thank you all for stepping up in these roles as well, so, yeah. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is public comment. Did everybody get their cards in that are providing comment? Okay, cool, okay. Oh, wait, I gotta read first, yeah. I have a big thing to read to you all real quick, and then we'll get started on that. Okay, we will now open the public comment period. We value the lived experiences of students, families, staff, and community, and welcome public comment as a necessary and important part of the work of the district and board. Okay, so this is going to be for all of you testifying. The complete guidelines for public comment are available on the registration table at the back of the gym and on the board's website. And I will share a few important points now. When it's your turn to speak, please come forward and have a seat and direct your comments to the board. Speakers may offer objective criticism of district operations and programs, but the board will not hear complaints concerning individual district personnel. As a reminder, you will have 3 minutes to make your comments. I will alert you when you have 30 seconds left and when your time is up. So I like to point out to everybody the lights on the table right here go green, yellow, red. When it turns yellow, you have 30 seconds left, and when it's red, your time's up. It's really hard to interrupt you when you only have 30 seconds. I usually I'm like, hey. That way you have that full 30 seconds to finish your thoughts, and I do have to let you know when the time's up though. And following your comments, the board will have 3 minutes to ask clarifying questions, but are not able to engage in conversation. If board members would like to revisit a topic or issue brought up during public comment, they may do so at the appropriate time in the agenda. And with this one, I like to let you all know, we would love to engage in conversation with you. We cannot though. We can ask questions and that's it. And sometimes people are expecting us to engage and we're not able to. So just a heads up on that again. And it's a little bit hard too, but yeah. Before you start your comments, please state your name for the record and state whether you reside within the school district boundary. Okay, so now we've read all the things and you can call people up. Thanks, Kim. And as you're coming up, there's a button on the microphone. When this is green, your microphone's on.
Turn blue. Is that good enough? I'm John Swanson. I live in the Corvallis School District. My children attended Corvallis schools from K through graduation in high school, and I have a granddaughter who is a 4th grader in the school district. And I've been advocating for sustainability in our schools since it was first introduced in 2009. I'd like to start by giving some kudos and appreciation to the school district for including eco-literacy in your board goals statement draft, and also secondly, for including in the sustainability management plan, a plan for integrating sustainability into the classroom curriculum. I think those are good steps. In reviewing the current draft of the sustainability management plan, I would like to offer some feedback and suggestions for your consideration. I think most would agree that the Sustainability Management Plan goals are strongest when they include a measurable outcome and data for accomplishment. A good example is the food waste goal, which states by 2025, reduce district waste sent to the landfills per student by 5%. That kind of nails it, doesn't it? My concern is with the adequacy of the leadership goal L1, which calls for developing a plan for integrating sustainability into our school curriculum. While developing a plan is an important first step, I am concerned that the most important goal by far is implementing the plan, and it will not move forward in a timely manner without implementation in the goal. We've seen this happen with past district sustainability plans. It's been over a decade since the district sustainability task force called for including sustainability in school classrooms. To avoid further delays, I suggest that the leadership goals should include a timeline for both completing and implementing a plan for integrating sustainability curriculum into our schools. I ask you, without implementation strategies with measurable outcomes, how will we know that sustainability progress is being achieved? I hope you will consider strengthening the sustainability management plan so that it includes a way to track measurable progress in bringing sustainability into the classroom. We need to prepare our students as soon as possible to meet one of the greatest challenges humanity has ever faced.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Go ahead, Simon.
I do. Thank you, John. Really appreciate your inputs and the highlights that I noted. I want to ask you maybe a question relevant to your testimony or also the aggregate of your advocacy on this issue. Sometimes decisions need to be made on prioritizing one goal over the other. And I'm curious whether your testimony here, you're implicitly or explicitly advocating for, well, I hear you that you're advocating for a timeline and specific implementation, but in addition to that, if goal A is the educational aspect of sustainability, teaching students about sustainability, and B, embracing sustainability practices in our operation as an institution, do you prefer or do you think prioritizing A is over B? Both are important, but if you have to list one before the other, which one would you advocate? And is your testimony today in favor of that kind of balance between one over the other?
Yeah, I don't think it's a choice. The way I would look at it is that you would develop a timeline for doing the plan first, and that then you would have an implementation after the plan. My concern is that it's been 4 years between sustainability the update, and I know that you're on a timeline to do it in 2 years, but I don't think that we need to wait 2 years to start implementing. So I think both are very important. You've got to have a plan, but I don't think that if there's a commitment by the school district that it's going to take 2 years to develop a plan before we can start integrating it into the schools.
Thank you.
Answers your question.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, John.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Troy Brandt. I am a resident of the Corvallis School District, a parent and PTA president at Franklin School. I provided a packet of information that's in support of my abbreviated statement tonight, so hopefully you have a chance to take a look at that packet when you have the time. On behalf of the Franklin School PTA, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to provide the following testimony regarding the school district's library book weeding that was completed earlier this year. The goal of the Franklin PTA, like all parent-teacher associations, is to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. The Corvallis School District provided a weeding policy on March 8th, 2023. According to the policy, the intent of the weeding was to provide high-quality materials that address limited space, improve access and visibility to existing books, determine areas of need in library collections, to better adapt to changing curriculum needs, and to make it easier for students to find age-appropriate, high-quality, and up-to-date resources. The district provided several criteria that guided book removal, including condition, age, frequency of use, multiple copies, publication date, student interest, and book quality. Books removed from libraries were to get a second chance, which would include placement in other district school libraries or classrooms, offering to families, donations to organizations, or use in maker and art spaces. Any materials not deemed worth a second chance were to be discarded. The district and the school principal were also to approve all weeded materials. And finally, the district noted that through the bond, the district planned for an estimated 20 to 25 books per student per school. So in the packet that I provided, much of the analysis, I'm just going to give you some of the highlights here. So the Franklin School Library had 31.4 books per student before the weeding and 12.1 books per student after the weeding. Again, the target for the district is 20 to 25 books per student. Franklin is currently the only school when compared to the other elementary schools in the district, even though we're a K through 8, we're the only school that has less than 20 books per student. The weeding removed approximately 70% of Franklin School's library collections in 2023. Of the 9,856 books in the 2022 collections, over 6,900 were removed and 675 books were added. The Franklin School library collections varied from other district school library collections due in part to the Franklin's core knowledge curriculum and PTA and parent book donations over time. So what am I asking for? We're requesting that the district puts a plan in place to get us up to that 20 to 25 books per student that all the other schools, all the other elementary schools in the district have exceeded. Thank you.
Thanks, Troy. Are there any questions from any board members? My only question is, were you able to make all your points that you had on your paper in front of you? Or if there was any
I do have one more point if I
can you tell us your other point?
Sure. And if you do have a chance to look through the packet, there are several other points within the packet, but the Franklin School Library collections accounted for 30% of all the books that were weeded from the district schools, and we've received 7% of the books that were added to the libraries across the district.
Any further questions? You brought that to the packet and gave it?
Yeah,
Kim has it, yeah. Okay, thank you, a paper copy.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for your time, and thank you, the PTA.
Appreciate it.
There we go. Okay. So we're the Sheldon Middle School Science Department, and we were going to see if we could just all come up here. We have our own time to talk and our own things to talk, but just. So policy states one of you can speak for the group. So if you're coming up together, one person would speak for the 3 minutes. If you want to each have 3 minutes. So we can do 3 minutes, but can I go first? Because we kind of have it in order. Okay, awesome. Okay. So my name's Alexis McQuillan, and I am in Corvallis School District. I'm coming to talk today for the Sheldon Middle School Science Department, and we really want to get science back to a full year. When we switched to trimesters in the middle school, science and social studies both went from a full year to 2 trimesters out of 3. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why this is important to get back to a year. So the first reason is, well, actually, one of the reasons that was given as we were switching around was to build relationships with students, and we've actually found that building relationships with students has decreased a lot with only 2 out of 3 trimesters. For myself, and I think for all of us, we've noticed, we just got done with trimester 1, and I would say it takes at least 8 weeks to even have like a baseline understanding of all of our kids. At the end of the 12 weeks, I feel like I've got this down, I'm good to go, right? I've got my 504s, my IEPs, I know those kids, I know the accommodations that I need, all my ELL kids, and then every other kid that I don't have that information about, at the end of 12 weeks, I feel like I have a really solid foundation. But now we're starting trimester 2, and some of my kids I won't see until trimester 3, so there's a big break. Some of my kids, or some of the kids were in Jake's class for 6th grade Science A and now switched to my class. When he gets Science B in trimester 3, we'll switch up again. And then the other piece is we don't have the same class of kids, and it takes a really long time to build that class culture, to build those relationships, and even if we have the same kids, switching up the class makes it very difficult to have that safe space. So it's definitely decreased our ability to have relationships with kids and for kids to feel comfortable, particularly 6th graders. Think about them, they come in, they're terrified, and by the end of 12 weeks, they're feeling really good, and then boom, they're switching again. And so that's pretty problematic. The other piece that's really important is we are doing a lot of things with PBL, project-based learning, and that hits board goal about real and authentic learning. If you're gonna do project-based learning, it takes time. There's no way you can do it quickly. And so we're still doing some of that, but we're like cutting stuff in order to make that work. And we also know that project-based learning is the best way to teach kids, to make it meaningful, to connect topics, and all of those things. Another piece within project-based learning is we're working really hard to embed equity within our units all the time. We're working on this. And so if we want to do that, we definitely cannot do that quickly, right? That takes relationship building, and it takes time to actually take time on different topics that are really important and sensitive. The other piece that's really important is there's a lot of things in science where we need continuity throughout the year. For instance, we do a lot with the wetlands. We do things with trimester 1 kids that trimester 2 kids cannot do because we're not planting camas bulbs in the winter. Jenny has a big Mary's Peak field trip in May, and I'm just gonna do 2 more things. And she has kids that aren't even in science when they do that.
We have to have you pause and see if we have questions first. Okay?
Yep.
Do we have questions?
Could you
Yeah.
conclude your remarks?
What?
Could you conclude your,
Oh,
you
yeah.
continue your remarks?
I was just going to say one more thing about physical science, which is trying to launch rockets in the winter, for instance, is very difficult. So for science in particular, having a full year and having a continuous full year is really, really important.
Do you have a question?
Can you just say the part about physical science? I just couldn't.
Oh, yeah.
hear you 'cause of the,
Physical science, in our physical science, which is our 7th grade classes, they're doing things like launching rockets, and so for us to do that in the middle of winter is just really poor timing. Nobody enjoys that. It's a very difficult thing to do in the middle of the super, super rainy season. So there's lots of pieces where we really want to have all of our kids do one thing in the fall and all of our kids do one thing in the spring, and we don't want to have them mixed in and not in science at that time.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Chris.
Curious about scheduling.
Yeah.
How would that integrate into, I know scheduling
Yeah.
is always an issue at middle
Scheduling
school,
is
and
always
so
an
how would
issue.
that-
Absolutely. So to be honest with you, Chris, I don't have that answer. Yeah, scheduling is difficult. Switching from semesters to trimesters back to semesters. I don't know, but I am 100% confident that we can figure this out. And I know that there's lots of teachers who are willing to, come in and brainstorm and come up with solutions so that kids can do these things, plus still have electives. I know there's things with union that come in contracts. It's not easy. It's absolutely not easy. But I'm pretty sure that we can make it work. So yeah, and I would be willing to help with that, as I'm sure all of these folks would be back here.
Go ahead, Judah. We have 1:14. Yeah.
What if all the students were blocked together in 2 trimesters with the same teacher, and there wasn't that switching around? So you would have 1, 2, and then 2, 3. Like you'd have the same group of students for 2 consecutive trimesters.
That would be a bit better, and still not good enough. So definitely better, but we still run into the problem with things happening in different seasons. We still run into the problem of not being able to do so much to do and do real meaningful units. We just can't do all of that stuff we need to do in 2 trimesters. It's just not even close to enough time. I mean, we can't do everything we want to do in a year, but when you take it down to 2/3 of the year, it's really, really hard. And we don't want to do just we don't want things to be, one topic and another topic and another topic. We want to like make a really meaningful unit where we're bringing in all of these pieces and building on the things. And it's really hard to do that with more than like 2 or 3 units if we have 2/3 of the year instead of a whole year. Yeah.
Thanks, Alexis. You
Yeah.
literally just ran out of time with that thought. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. I'm Jacob Gradick. I'm also part of the amazing science department at Sheldon Middle School. I feel really lucky to work there. They're amazing. And I appreciate you giving us some time to talk about this. I too am gonna provide, I think, some rationale for returning science to a full year. I am said physical science teacher who launches rockets in winter. I don't mind that at all, but I'm weird like that. We have a standardized test in science too, and we're simply just not able to cover all of the NGS standards, next generation science standards. And certainly not with, I think, the depth students deserve. When we choose to go deeper, I like to call it post-holing, like let's just dive deep into this topic. It really becomes a discussion of what else to cut. And there simply isn't enough time in 2 trimesters to build those deep, enduring understandings that we're looking for and that I think our kids deserve. Scaffolding in science really requires that spiral review. Also, I'd like to point out that improving district math scores are a goal, and I think having a full year of science would help with that. It gives students a chance to look at and analyze bivariate data, constructing diagrams, building models, independent and dependent variables. There's a ton of crossover. And I think it helps with engagement too, is seeing the relevance of mathematics in a science setting. There's a ton of value in that as well. Also, like Alexis alluded to, there's some drop-off we see between first and third trimester. So when we have students first trimester and then they have a gap and then they come back to us later, they haven't been practicing and polishing those skills that they need to be good scientific thinkers. A full year in science would give us really more time to develop those engineering practices as well, and for students to flex those 21st century skills. And we believe that that would give us the chance to get students asking and wrestling with those fundamental questions that they're going to need to fix as adults. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Go ahead.
I wonder, when we were talking about scheduling earlier, do we know if we added science year-round, what we would have to give up as something because of scheduling issues?
That's a good question that as my first year at Sheldon, I don't think I have the answer to. Building a schedule is a beast, for sure. But I know we've had science all year in the past too, with a different number of periods per day. And I just want to reiterate what Lex said, is that I think we have everything we need here in district to figure this out.
And would you be open to adding the sustainability curriculum into that?
Absolutely, yes. Right, you're preaching to the choir.
Other questions? Okay, thank you. Jacob.
Thank you.
Hello? Oh, it's already on. Okay. Hi, my name is Jenny Davis, and I live within the Corvallis School District. Scientific literacy is understanding what science is and how to use scientific information to make decisions. Being scientifically literate helps students make decisions that are in the best interest of their futures and the futures of our communities. To become scientifically literate, students must engage in and make sense of many authentic science experiences and investigations. Taking away a third of our time greatly diminishes our ability to create and build on these opportunities throughout the year. In 2020, the World Health Organization declared that alongside COVID-19 pandemic, it was also fighting an infodemic of misinformation in the general public. In a time when we are facing the lasting problems of the COVID pandemic, certain future pandemics, and the impending global climate crisis, developing scientific literacy in our students is of the utmost importance. As a former research scientist and passionate science teacher, I am asking that the district reinstate a full year of science at every grade level in Corvallis middle schools.
Any questions? I did have a question, but it was about the scheduling, since we have a little bit of time. Had you all talked about that prior to it being switched to trimesters, how it would impact the science curriculum, or was it kind of just rolled out with you all?
I think I can speak for us, and let me know if I'm wrong, but we did not feel like that was taken into consideration, our concerns were taken into consideration.
Okay.
We definitely voiced our concern about cutting science out of the curriculum, a third of it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead, Judah.
What subjects are getting 3 trimesters at Sheldon?
Which
Which other subjects are getting 3 trimesters in a row at Sheldon?
I'm sorry, it's kind of.
What subjects, reading, math, art, physical education, are getting 3 trimesters in a row at Sheldon?
So social studies and science are the 2 ones that were cut back to 2 trimesters out of 3. Does that
Rather
answer
than
your
3,
question?
those are the only 2?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there any more cards? Okay. Hearing no further comments, the public comment period is now closed. Thank you, everyone who came in and provided testimony. Appreciated. And the next thing on the agenda is the Sustainability Management Plan. We have the first read, and we have, Kim, are you coming up for this? Yeah, okay. Can you, and Kathy? And we have a presentation.
Thank you for having us tonight. We published a draft plan in the board packet, and so I hope you've all had a chance to take a look at that. I want to make sure that everybody knows Kathy Fazer. She's been hired as our sustainability specialist, and she has been rocking and rolling since she was hired, doing lots of work and really getting a good start on the work at hand. So online today we have Imogen Ainsworth from Brendel Group, and just as a reminder, Brendel Group supported the district in developing the original sustainability management plan that was approved in 2019. So I am actually going to hand over to Imogen, who is going to walk us through the plan and how we got to the draft. And so with that, Imogen, I'm going to hand it over to you. I'm going to advance the slides for her so that she can see and be ready to share.
I was just going to say, we need you to restart here in a second because we don't have audio. Tech support's working on it. Do you want to try, Imogen? Yeah, we can't hear you yet. Hold on a second. They're still working on it. Can you try to talk again? Okay, we still can't hear you. Hold on, we're trying to figure it out still. Okay, so we're gonna try something, Imogen, if you wanna talk and see if we can get it on the mic.
Just a second, Imogen. Okay, Imogen, can you give it another chance? My mic is muted.
Okay, that may not be working. Hey, Shauna, can you try talking? Yeah, we can't hear you either, Shauna, so we're gonna have to figure something out if you need to talk to.
Imogen, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear her?
I can hear you, Kim. If anyone else is talking, I can't hear that.
Okay, that sounds good. If we have speaking from the board, then I will translate for you.
Okay, sounds good. Do I need to start again at the beginning? There was no audio.
Let's
Okay.
go. Yep.
Okay. So as Tim said, I'm here, Imogen Ainsworth, tonight to just provide an overview of the Sustainability Management Plan development process. And I'll start off just by giving a quick reflection on the 2019 Sustainability Management Plan before going into the plan update process and timeline. And then just provide a quick overview, not a detailed kind of in-depth overview of what's in the plan document itself, but just a high-level summary of kind of what stayed the same from the 2019 plan, what changed, what's completely new in the 2023 plan, and then what's next, so what the next steps are. Here's the next slide. So just reflecting on some successes to start off with from since the first plan in 2019. So we know that the bond program was a huge project for the district and that facilities upgrades were completed throughout district buildings. We know that green teams and sustainability leaders are now kind of in place in every school. And then finally, just the bike education program expanded to include elementary and middle school students. And I know this is probably just kind of a handful of the many things that happened across the district since 2019. And some of those are included in the updated plan as well, just to provide some reflection and celebration of successes of all the work that was done. You go to the next slide. We also know that there were some challenges with implementation of the plan since 2019. So both the global pandemic and the impact of construction activities impacted buildings and as a result of remote learning, partial building shutdowns for construction, reprioritization of staffing resources, and then data collection challenges. So all of these things impacted some of the collection of data that was able to happen between 2019 and 2023 when we're updating the plan. And it also impacted the implementation of some of the strategies that were included in the plan and kind of affected progress towards some of those goals. And so that's also reflected. And so then when we came to updating the plan in 2023, we started out with just updating the baseline and data tracking. So tracking some of those key metrics across each of the action areas that are included in the plan and reviewing progress towards the goals and strategies that were in that original 2019 plan. And then based on that, we evaluated the updated baseline in the context of the bond project implementation and all the changes that have happened. So reflecting on the facilities upgrades that were made, and then also some of the reasons for some of the changes that we saw between 2019 and 2023. Based on that evaluation, we then updated the goals and strategies in the plan. So you'll see that some of the strategies have just been tweaked, some of the goals have just been tweaked, others are entirely new or more significant revisions. And equally, some of the strategies had already been implemented, and so those are kind of not reflected in the new plan. And we also identified new strategies based on kind of current priorities and emerging opportunities. So thinking not just about what has been done since 2019, but also kind of where there are new opportunities that have emerged since then. And finally, we created an implementation framework, including detailed strategy work plans and a framework and schedule for implementation. And so you'll see across the bottom, we just hope that this plan is kind of driven by the data. So we're looking at, what actually has happened since 2019 and how that's impacted data in each of the action areas. It's rooted in community priorities. So as I'll describe in a few moments here, we did some outreach with the community, the kind of broader community, as well as with staff and students to ensure that the plan is reflective of priorities. And then it's specific to the school district. So really looking at kind of the impacts and activities that have happened in Corvallis since the last plan. Here's the next slide. So I'll just go through quickly the timeline and activities for updating the plan. So we kicked off in January, and then in March to June, we had feedback sessions with key district staff. And so these were 5 sessions covering each of the action areas that are in the Sustainability Management Plan. And during these sessions, we reviewed data and trends with staff, and kind of informed our understanding of progress and challenges. So really sitting down and talking with the people who know what's happened on the ground in the district to understand why we're seeing some of the data trends that are reflected in the plan, what might have impacted the changes, and then start to identify any new strategies and opportunities to really make sure that the plan is reflecting what's feasible and what the priorities are across the district staff. The next slide. So then in August, we had a review and feedback session with the Sustainability Coalition. So based on the input that we'd received from key staff, we'd put together draft goals and strategies. And so this was an opportunity to sit down with community members and key local sustainability partners to review those draft goals and strategies at a relatively early stage in the plan development, and also start informing some of those connections to community activities and opportunities where there may be an opportunity to leverage resources and organizations in the community to support implementation of the plan. Go to the next slide. And then in November, myself and Grace, my coworker, came in an in-person trip to Corvallis to have feedback sessions with the community and with the staff and students, as well as kind of that fed into a online public comment period afterwards. And if you go to the next slide, I have a bit more detail. So during those feedback sessions, as I mentioned, we came to Corvallis, we had a community open house followed by online public review, and then those two 90-minute feedback sessions with the school sustainability leaders and then with the high school green teams. And what we learned during these feedback sessions, I think this number one is that students and staff are very engaged in sustainability work. It was really exciting for us to be able to visit in person and kind of run through the draft plan, strategies and goals with some of the people who will be moving this forward on the ground, and just see the level of engagement and excitement around sustainability. And we heard pretty clearly from the high school green teams that they're interested in being involved in implementation and also in receiving updates on the sustainability management plan going forward. And this was reflected in a new strategy in the final plan. We also heard that they'd be interested in opportunities to connect with high school green teams from different schools. So we had the green teams from the 3 different high schools together for the feedback session, and they were excited about that opportunity to kind of connect across the schools. And then finally, from all of the sessions, we received input that shaped the final strategy work plans. So there wasn't any major changes beyond a slight wording change to one of the strategies and then addition of the strategy around the high school green teams. There is input that will be incorporated into the implementation of the strategy. So more of the how than the what, I think, was the some of the feedback that we had. Next slide. So then finally, just looking ahead at what this timeline is. So we're here in December for review of the draft plan. My understanding is that it will be coming back for adoption and consideration in January. And then I think, as Kim mentioned, the goals and strategies that are in this updated sustainability management plan are intended for implementation in financial years 2024 and 2025. So a pretty short timeline for implementation of the strategies that are in that. And that's kind of to keep it manageable and implementable in the short term. So as far as what stayed the same in this plan compared to 2019, the vision statement and the commitment to sustainability overall has stayed the same. We didn't change this vision statement. It seems that it is still kind of serving the district in the format that it was in. Similarly, we did not change the 5 key areas of action. So the key action areas in the plan are energy and water, facilities, transportation, food and waste, and then leadership. Next slide. But some things did change. So I already mentioned we used a lot of the data to update some of the plan's goals. So many of the goals, not all, were updated to reflect progress to date and establish new targets for 2025. In some cases, new goals were created to reflect new priorities and emerging opportunities in the district. Many of the plan strategies were also updated. So several of the 2019 plan strategies have been completed and are not included in the 2023 update. And we also incorporated lessons learned since the 2019 plan to help shape the prioritization of strategies for 2024 and 2025. And you can see this kind of cycle on the right, that this is kind of an ongoing process of updating the data, evaluating progress, understanding trends, reviewing goals and strategies, and then updating the plan document. So this is kind of seen as an ongoing cycle with continual evaluation going forward. The next slide. So then some things were completely new in the plan. So this increased focus on implementation, I think, is an important piece of the new plan that wasn't spelled out in quite as much detail in 2019 plan. So this plan specifically identifies roles for school sustainability leaders and green teams that were informed by those feedback sessions that we had. And then also included in the plan, and there are links as an appendix in the plan to strategy work plans that build out in more detail a description, scope and roles, resources, metrics, where there are cross connections across different strategies, where they are related, and then the timeline. And so these are linked in the plan because they're intended to be more kind of living documents and not kind of part of the more static sustainability management plan, but really to guide implementation over the next 2 years as kind of a action plan for how each of the strategies will be implemented. And then we also included an implementation framework with a high-level kind of initial timeline and schedule for what implementation could look like. Next. So as far as what's next, kind of this ties back to that graph of kind of ongoing performance management and updating. So performance monitoring will be a core piece of the implementation going forward, with ongoing data tracking, implementation of the plan strategies. So again, using those strategy work plans and the implementation schedule that are in this plan update to help guide the action going forward, and checking in throughout the year to see where each of the plan strategies are at. So kind of building that in. Communication and reporting, the plan outlines, provides an outline for an annual report, and also starts to identify engagement opportunities and events throughout the year. And then I just have this kind of continuous improvement on the bottom. So just recognizing that this is a kind of ongoing process of continuous improvement. We'll never achieve sustainability. And so I think just rechecking in and the performance monitoring on an ongoing basis will help to keep the plan relevant, to keep it moving forward. And I think that's all the slides, so I might pass it back to Kim to kick off, and if there's any questions.
Thank you, Imogen.
Any questions? Good, Sammy.
So I've got a couple of questions, and I'll start with the first one in Appendix B, electricity unit cost. So I'm going to start micro and then I'll go a little bit macro. So Appendix B, electricity unit costs, there is a huge jump in the electricity costs. If you track it from 2011 to 2021, it was pretty much flat, but then it increases 20%. And I remember that percentage when we were talking about current service level and how 20% to heat up our buildings is the actual current service level. Why is that 20% in your opinion?
Yeah, I can answer that. So when we returned from the pandemic and we had to run 100% outside air in order to get the air turnovers that we needed. So that meant we were running unit fans and running our heating systems continuously, which ate a lot of energy. And so when you bring in 100% outside air, you're constantly having to heat, and run the fans also. So that was a huge increase that we had.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Hence my second question.
Sure.
Which is, this is a phenomenal plan, and we could be hit with a pandemic, hopefully not again in our lifetime. But the answer, What I'm trying to say is we could have extenuating circumstances or external factors that we cannot control, and building institutional capacity to adopt this plan and have results that show that this plan is working should be both adaptable with external circumstances and at the same time can be measured independent of that. So for this unique example, having 20% increase of the cost, electricity unit cost, I would like you to maybe answer, how are we able, whether it's in this example or other future examples that we can't think about right now, to capture, is the plan working even if there are external factors that we can't control are influencing the metrics or the results that we're measuring and using?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Sammy, and one that I've thought a lot about. It's about telling the story, right? And so knowing what is that increased percentage of energy that's related to our unexpected condition, and normalizing it within the tracking of the data. When I stepped in last year to look at all of the data, it was past that point, and we didn't do quite what I would have liked as far as tracking. So yes, we are looking at how to be adaptive and how to tell the story about what is impacting our energy usage, and that'll be implemented through regular monthly checks and monitoring and seeing where we're increasing and being able to investigate immediately and tell the story about what the impact is and how it impacted our savings or reduced usage.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Good, sir.
Yeah, so we had public comment earlier about speeding up the implementation of curriculum, and actually during the meeting we got another public comment that was emailed to the board that asked those same questions.
Yes.
So I was just wondering about is it realistic to expect that we would at least be able to test a developed curriculum before the end of this 2-year rotation, or why was that not part of the plan?
So I will tell you that this year we are working on our science adoption, which is a prime time to be talking about sustainability curriculum. So I have had conversations with our educational coordinators, and the thing that I envision, and that we envision actually, is something of sustainable design guidelines like we use for the bond program, something that would lead us down to the questioning path of how is it addressing sustainability and eco-literacy. I had a recent conversation with Nikki McFarland, our secondary coordinator, and she talked about eco-literacy standards that are already built into the state standards, right? And so we are actually meeting, I believe it's next week. It might be the week after winter break because it's starting to get really busy. But to put together and look at the evaluation process for the science curriculum adoption to make sure that we are addressing eco-literacy as part of that adoption process. So to answer your question, yes, we didn't get a timeline associated with it because it could be a really huge process, and it could be, we're definitely going to get it in for the science adoption, but then we also need to look at how those questions can be applied throughout the other curriculum areas. And so that would be my answer to that one.
Great, thank you.
Can I make a
Sure.
comment? One thing that would help with that is that our board goals be provisionally adopted, because we're talking about them in the current sense, and they're not in the current sense at this point in time. So that's my plug, and now we'll move along.
Thanks, Ryan.
That's where that came from earlier when we were talking about it, right? Why it's important.
The other thing, as Imogen was talking about the high school green teams and wanting to be part of the implementation and being able to connect across schools, I was thinking about the students who came and presented here about the waste management in the lunchrooms, and I immediately thought, well, our middle school and elementary school students will tell you the exact same thing, so I would really encourage you to have them, not just think about the high school students, but the middle school and elementary school students who are really invested and really involved already. And then I had one question that's just kind of, I think it must just be, I just noticed it today, so I apologize for not asking about it earlier, and I don't have the page number written down, but there's a place where you have a table that lists each school, and I'm trying to find it, and sort of whether they have solar array, that table, Garfield's not on it.
Oh, well, we need to fix that. So we will make note of that and make sure it gets updated, because Garfield does have solar.
Yeah, yeah. So,
That's the beauty of a
Page
first and
13,
second read.
is it on page 13 maybe, Sarah? Is that the?
We will verify all of those and make sure it's accurate.
probably.
Thanks for
It's at
catching
the
that,
beginning,
Sarah. I do want to tell you that Kathy was at that high school feedback session, and she is actually working on getting our secondary students to help guide our elementary. And so I'm really excited. Is there anything you want to share about that, Kathy?
Not anything too much, but it's very exciting to be with the students. And so I'm going to do a little tour in January of some of the green teams, both primary and secondary. And yes, their enthusiasm is it's wonderful. So that was one of our best feedback sessions that we had.
Any other questions? I just had a comment about, like, I was really excited to hear the students wanting to meet up, because it reminds me of other efforts and how this is, it's another opportunity for students to connect across schools, and how that reflects just the entire way that any kind of change with environmental impacts works. It's like a collective. It's not like individually into one little spot, so I really appreciate that part. Did you have something to say about that?
Yeah. Can I add one thing to that? Because it was wonderful not only to see them want to connect across schools, but also who can they connect with within their schools.
Yeah.
So thinking about other, perhaps less vocal students that also need to be heard within the Green Team conversation. So reaching to other clubs within their own schools. So yes, they have very good, wonderful ideas to work with.
Thanks for adding that in. And just the other thing, my continual comment of thinking about beyond solar, how we can really talk about consumption and energy use too, with the environmental impacts of lithium mining in the Pacific Northwest that are coming up, and how that's very localized with the water impacts as well as the land disturbances and endangered species disturbances to mine for lithium. So that's just a little reminder of, like, we're talking about like how good solar is on our buildings, which it is, and there's also upcoming environmental impacts that are going to contribute to more climate crisis stuff very locally. And so that's just to add that into our combos too. Any other? Go ahead, Ryan.
And then just for the board, just remember, this is like a policy in terms of it's a first read and second read, so can make some of those corrections and then bring it back for adoption at our meeting in January.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Y'all have anything? Are you good?
We're good.
Okay, thanks you all for the report and presentation and answering all the questions and hearing comments.
I want to take a break and check if Shauna has access to speak to us.
Like an official break, so we can figure that out.
I think so. If she needs to speak,
Okay, there's a suggestion we take an official 5-minute, that way we can check on the sound stuff and make sure Shauna can fully participate. I think that's a. So we can go ahead and take it's early for a break, but it's okay. I think we need to make sure that way we can go ahead and take do y'all get that over there, tech support folk? We're going to recess for 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, we're back. Um, The next thing on the agenda is Student Investment Account Annual Report with Melissa. And before we get started, just so folk know, the audio is not working from Zoom. So Shauna will be putting in the comments on Zoom any questions she may have, and Kim will be reading them for her in comments as well. That way folk know what's going on with that part. So you ready, Melissa?
I am ready, thank you. You have in your packet a report that is due to ODE, one of the 200 that our district puts together every year, as we've been counting. But this is the annual report for our SIA funding from last year. And they're just kind of some thought-provoking questions that they ask us about how, not specifically how we spent the money, but what kind of like how we learned, what we learned from the way that we spent our money last year. I can't tell you if this is what it's going to look like next year, because SIA is now wrapped up in the integrated guidance, and we've already done one quarterly report for integrated guidance for the spending we've done with the new money in the first quarter. And those were different questions, progress markers, things that we were doing. So I really don't know what the annual report will look like next year, but for this past year, there it is.
Thank you, Melissa. Is my mic on okay? Okay, there it goes. Any questions?
How many hours approximately are we spending on the grant application reporting?
Quite a few, putting the grant together, but the reporting, our business department puts in hours and hours of reconciliation, working just on the budget end. Then I work on the narrative end. The application part is obviously much longer. My good friend and colleague, Amy Leeson, right now is currently working hard, many hours a day, trying to put together the early literacy grant that she's going to present to you all next week. And it's money we need, and it's not a competitive grant, but we have to do a lot of work to get that started. So she's in it because she knows we need it, and we need to do it for our students. But it's sometimes it's a lot when you have another job. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But we'll happily do it to get what we need for our kids.
And much appreciated. Thank you. I want to recognize those tireless hours.
Thank you.
Okay, I had a question about, in the answer to question 1, I have it in my comments on board books, so I'm trying to get to that. But on that one, it's talking about having materials and having conversations around, I think it's around different viewpoints and all of those kind of things. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
That answer? So my question was around the support in place, or does there need to be more support for staff training on holding those conversations in the classroom? And if so, what kind of more support is that? Especially if some of the views violate state policies like all students belong and stuff like that. So that was kind of where that question was coming from.
Yeah, I think so those were criteria that we're using to choose curriculum. And our hope is that the curriculum provides those opportunities in activities and things that teachers can lead in the classroom. And that's why the training that goes with the curriculum, the materials that we're adopting for curriculum are so important, because teachers then are learning the skills of how to work through and manage those kinds of conversations, especially when they get difficult or complicated. And that ongoing training is something that's been, this year we've been doing a fair amount of training with our English language arts teachers with their new curriculum, so that they can have those kinds of robust conversations in the classroom.
Okay, so some of that's already with the curriculum?
It's built in.
That's great. Thank you for, that way folk know how that happens if they're reading the report out there. Any other questions for Melissa? All right, great, thank you. Thanks for your work on that.
Yep.
And everybody else too on that. Okay. Our next item on the agenda is the Student Investment Account Grant Agreement, and we have Olivia coming up for this one.
Hi. I don't have any thing formal to present. This grant agreement is drafted by the state. Every district that receives the grant gets the same type of agreement, and we are required by statute to present it to the board for approval in an open meeting that allowed for a public comment. And so that's why it's structured this way tonight. It took the state quite a while to process the grant agreements, and so we've spent a lot of grant money since July 1, and so we are ready to get this grant processed so that we can start accessing the $6 million of funds that are waiting for us. So once the grant agreement is processed by the state, we'll be able to access 50% of the grant award, and by that time, we'll probably have spent 50% of the grant award. So it's good for the cash flow to get it back.
Thanks, Olivia. Is there any discussion? Does anyone wish to make a motion?
Chair, first of all, thanks for your trust in the state. That's the money will come. I move to approve the district's 2023-24 Student Investments Account SIA Grant Agreement.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved by Sammy and seconded by Judah. Is there any further discussion? Okay. And once again, it has been moved by Sammy and seconded by Judah to approve the district's 2023-24 Student Investment Account, also known as SIA Grant Agreement. And we'll just go ahead and vote. So Judah?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Sammy?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Shauna?
Votes aye.
Shauna voted aye. Thank you, Kim. And I vote aye, so it passes unanimously. Thanks, Olivia, for all your work on this. Okay, next on the agenda is consolidated action. As a reminder, the items under this portion of the agenda are for action. Does anyone have a question about anything in consolidated action?
So I had a question before, but Melissa wasn't here on the update to the wellness policy, and if that was going to impact how we're out of compliance for physical activity in the district.
So the updates in the wellness policy with regard to physical education minutes are the updates for this current year. And when I presented Division 22 and told you we would not meet that this year, that's aligned to the new policy.
That's this policy. Thank you.
Yes.
That was my question.
Anything else in consolidated action? Does anyone wish to make a motion?
I move to adopt consolidated action as presented.
Anyone want a second?
I second.
Discussion.
Okay, has been moved by Sammy and seconded by Chris. Is there any further discussion?
I do have a discussion, and if I may take a moment of personal privilege to acknowledge the notes that Ryan mentioned earlier today in his reports, that this is one of the last reports we're going to be hearing from Olivia. And I want to congratulate her on the new opportunity. And reflecting back when I first joined the school board budget committee, school district budget committee in 2015, about 9 years ago, I have grown so much in my understanding of how budget works and how to read the numbers. Personally, I'm grateful for Olivia's patience with questions of myself and fellow board members, starting from, I recall Tom Surrey picking on line item by line item. What about this expenditure? And Olivia, in a matter of seconds, she would say, what is the line item about, and which program it is used for, and what's the benefits for the kids about, and how it is impacting our students. So I want to say it is not lost on me today as we're approving budgets and looking at financials, the impact Olivia have made for the Corvallis community since she joined this district. So congratulating her on the good work and looking forward to see her good work in her new job, and also as a board member with PACE within OSBA. Any other comments?
I wanted to thank you again, Olivia, too, and all my questions always asking about birth rates and how that impacts our funding and allocation by students and stuff like that. So keeping track of little details, which are actually big details that people don't always think about. I think that's one of my number one questions of you every single time. So thank you. And with no further discussion, we will vote. It's been moved by Sammy and seconded by Chris to adopt the consolidated action items as submitted. Judah?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Sammy?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Shauna?
Aye.
Shauna voted aye. Thanks, Kim. And I vote aye. It passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is consolidated information. As a reminder, the items under this portion of the agenda are for discussion. Would anyone like to discuss an item in consolidated information? Okay. So we have no discussion on consolidated information this evening. And the next item on the agenda is board member comments. Does any board member have a comment? Go ahead, Judah.
So it's been so exciting to be working with the district about making our meetings more accommodating and to make sure that we are able to hear from as many different members of the public as we possibly can. And in that, I have a concern about our policy around public comment. And I don't believe it is formalized that we allow 6 minutes if someone's using a translator, so we can get full 3 minutes of information. So I'd like to address that policy for that and to request that the board consider adding a policy that as part of an accommodation for particularly people with speech impediments who are using electronic translators who talk out loud at a slower rate, that we allow 6 minutes for those individuals and make that a part of the accommodation, and that we change the policy only permitting one individual at the table to speak, to allow people who are using aides or somebody else to speak for them to read a comment on behalf of someone who may not be able to speak or may feel like their interests are best served by having someone else read a statement that they have prepared. And so I'm requesting that as a part of us looking at demonstrating a commitment to inclusivity, that we re-examine that policy.
Thanks, Judah. And you got that written down, Melissa? Yep. I think that last one about having folk at the table is somewhat, I mean, I know it happens, like people come up to the table together like earlier, but only one person can talk. And so that would be like, that part, but we can talk about it when we get the policy
Yeah, but
pulled.
that would be someone speaking on someone else's behalf and using
Right.
the full 3 minutes. Potentially, they would like to also share a comment, having that be done separately.
Yeah.
And that being reflected, written in our policy, so we're demonstrating this real commitment in our policy to show what our internal values are, which we would allow and or permit to say, no, it's specifically allowed for future generations of boards.
Thanks, Judah. And thank you for your work on that, too. Any other board member comment? Oh, Sarah, go ahead. And then Sammy.
I sort of have a couple things. One is with the issue with books and libraries. I was just wondering if we could get a report just to clarify for the board what the process will be going forward. I feel like we've had comments from a librarian. I just feel like because this is an issue that's come up a few times, I would just like to have more information. Tonight we had the report on the student investment account, and I mentioned earlier with the literacy initiative, Sammy mentioned school funding in his thing. I just want to, I think this is something that the community needs to keep hearing, that people need to keep hearing, that this is really an issue that we need to continue advocating for, because the models we're using to decide how much money schools need are really kind of broken at this point. And so I know it's something that we have all advocated for a lot, but for the community who are really interested in providing fabulous education for our students, please come join us because the more voices in this argument, the better. And the other thing I have on my list, which other people have already said, was a thank you to Olivia for her good work. I feel like in my time on the board, the budget has gotten more and more accessible for board members and for the community. And I think that's really important because we're stewards of the community's money and the community's children, and having a budget that people can understand, I think, is really important. And it also shows what our values are when we're able to read the budget. So thank you for your good work, and we will miss you.
Thanks, Sarah. Sammy?
I have actually a report and a comment. The first thing I forgot to report is Sherlock Holmes Baker Street Irregulars play by Corvallis High School was phenomenal. I stumbled upon Therese and her husband actually, and we saw it together, and it was really great performance. I enjoyed it, and our students, as usual, they impress. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity. The other comments I want to mention was just before this meeting started, Hanukkah, the first night of Hanukkah have started, and I want to wish the community members who are celebrating it happy Hanukkah. I recognize that the social media from the district shared some really positive messaging congratulating those who celebrate it, and it's very important. The community sees it and it's recognized, so really appreciate that. And also I had the honor to participate in the lighting of the Hanukkah tonight. That's why I was a few minutes late, and it was a really great opportunity. And I want to say, being honored, I take it personally, but also I take it as recognition for the school district, being there for our Jewish, Muslim, and all our community members, and it's been seen in the community and recognized. So for the community members who are listening, who are celebrating it, happy Hanukkah, and for our staff and students, thank you for continuing to keep our community a place of light during these days and beyond.
Go ahead, Chris.
We are doing board comments, right? I know, you just told me. I just wanted to say a couple things. First of all, I heard that during the last professional development day that a lot of staff participated in the QPR training again this year. And I just want to recognize that that is such a positive movement, and I appreciate that our district's doing that year after year. I heard a lot of positive comments that even though it's a repetitive training for our district, that people really value that training, and that within the training, when the district first started, it was just a lot of sit and get information for staff, and now it's more conversations from staff talking about their experiences and asking a lot more questions about how to actually apply what they're learning with what they're hearing with kids. And so I just really want to compliment the district for continuing that training, because I think it's crucial in our suicide prevention plan. And then also, I've been in several schools where I've had the opportunity to really observe the new system that we're using with the Dean of Students, where we've moved some of our behavior specialists, we've changed that process. And I just really want to say, wow, like I am seeing such success in that and hearing such positive comments within the staff about how the new process is working, how they're seeing a change in behaviors where they're really teaching strategies for kids with big behaviors. And I've just been hearing a lot of really positive comments about, wow, this is really working, and we've got this, and the process is really moving forward. So I just wanted to compliment that too, because it's exciting to hear. So.
Did Shauna have any comments? Okay. I heard that a lot of SAFE students are going to the Ethnic Studies Conference at Portland Community College tomorrow, and that'd be something really awesome to hear about for the board, how that experience goes for them. So maybe we can get an update on that eventually. Seems like a really good opportunity for them to meet other students from all over the place. Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that. And that was my whole big comment. And yeah, I hope everybody has a good night. Thanks again for everybody who provided public comment and for folk who sent emails into the board. We appreciate you engaging with us and look forward to ways to do that more in the future. So with that, the meeting is adjourned at 8:13 p.m.